Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we are talking muddy water fishing. We have had a ton of rain recently. The storm broke just last night. Our lake rose almost 2 feet this week, and this is a big body of water to be coming up that much. And all over this country, storm after storm after storm has been coming in. Some of the river systems are seeing high water flows like they haven't seen in 100+ years. So today we wanted to talk to you guys about muddy water because that's what a lot of you are facing. Let me tuck into a calmer spot and we'll talk about the baits you need and the techniques you can use to catch these fish even in zero visibility conditions. All right, we got into a little bit of a calmer spot here. So let's talk about muddy water. Let's talk about the things that you need to do to catch these fish. Now, there is a big difference between muddy water that is sustained and water that just became muddy and is rising. That's what I want to talk about today, is that rising muddy water, because that's what so many of us are facing. And this information, most of it is not new. We've talked about this before, but the channel has grown so much recently that I wanted to talk about it again, bring it to the front of your mind so that if you're out there facing these conditions, you know what to do. There's basically two approaches to that late winter, early spring murky situation, and one is a power fishing approach or a faster fishing approach, and then the other is the slower approach. When that water is coming up, you would be amazed, even when it's cold water, it can be in the 40s or 50s. If it's coming up fast, the bass are going to get up and push the shoreline. Just push it and push it and push it and push it. It doesn't matter. I mean, it would blow your mind. Even smallmouth do it. They'll push so tight, you're pitching into inches of water and you don't even know how the fish are hiding in there, but they are. They're up there and just nothing. And if you're a foot, 2, 3, 4 feet off the bank, sometimes they're not even interested, because when it's rising that quickly, they're patrolling that last edge back and forth, picking off all the new food that's coming into the water. That's what they're up there doing. So you want to fish just dirt shallow. The main bait that I like to throw for that stuff is the spinnerbait. That is just my confidence bait when it's that rising muddy water. Get up tight, throw that spinnerbait, and you can just smash on them. I prefer an all-white spinnerbait. Now, as you travel around the country, you're going to find some differences. You'll find areas where all chartreuse or chartreuse and white will work. But I've just found that all white is the most consistent, so that's always where I start. And then a lot of our fisheries have shad or smaller bait fish in them. And if that's the case for you, even in that muddy water, I have found that a willow leaf blade, this shaped blade, works the best. Even in that murky water. A lot of people swear by Colorados. And I'm not going to argue it, but I'll tell you, if the fish are primarily eating those smaller bait fish, especially shad, willow leaves are so consistent. But if you don't have shad, or they seem to be feeding on bigger bait fish, don't be afraid to switch over and throw those as well, because that Colorado blade puts out, it's completely different. It's, even though it's two spinnerbaits, the sound profile in the water is night and day. One of them has this high-pitched whirring sound, and the other one is just this heavy thump. And what they portray in the water is very different. And that Colorado blade definitely puts out a larger profile, like a larger bait fish would. So keep that in mind. The chatterbait, of course, is another great option. It's kind of up in the air on which way you want to go. I really prefer that spinnerbait. And then if the conditions are nasty, you know, if the fish have pushed up and you've got brush on the shoreline or heavy grass, the swim jig. I throw that guy right there, 3/4 ounce swim jig, even dirt shallow, because I want to be catching in the junk and ripping it free, creating a lot of commotion so those fish can find it. Because when you're facing zero visibility conditions, a swim jig makes no sound. It's all vibration, and it's not as much vibration as a spinnerbait. So any commotion, any ruckus that you can make banging into stuff is all good. But I love that all white trailer, or close to all white trailer, on a really bold colored swim jig like that. The beauty of that is, again, these fish are pulling up so tight, so shallow that they can get right in the heart of the brush. And even a spinnerbait, you can't get in and out of there. But a swim jig can go right into the heart of that stuff and do so much damage. Then the last fast bait that I want to talk about is, who would have thunk an LV500? Have we talked about that about 8,000 times? But is a lipless, guys, and you know that we prefer that LV, but if you're on a fishery where they prefer a little bit different sound, so be it. But the lipless, people don't think to throw a lipless when you're looking at chocolate milk water. But I'll tell you, if it's rising across grass flats, where you've got grass that you can hang up and rip free, when it's rising up in the grass, slow fishing a lipless, not burning it, don't get me wrong, you don't want to be burning that bait. Slow fishing on the bottom, where it rattles up and then falls, rattles up and then falls, and it's hanging up in that grass and you snap it free. It would amaze you what size fish will hunt that thing down, because that sound carries so far, it'll actually pull fish to it. That's an overlooked option in that really, really muddy water. Then your other approach, if the fish just aren't going to play the game, they're not willing to chase for whatever reason, slowing down then is your way to go. And your ideal situation is either a great big Texas rig or a great big jig. Dark, bold colors, black and blue is a primary color. Black and blue, black and red, June bugs. Those are the colors. Here's June bug. These are the colors that you want to focus on, those colors that are going to have a bold profile in that dark water. Keep it simple. I like to throw a pretty heavy weight, even though I'm fishing dirt shallow, because I'm just so connected to it. And sometimes when it's really bad too, you can get away with just straight braid. You can even eliminate the leader. Just go straight braid, and then it's just all power fishing. When it's that murky, when you're down to just almost no viz at all, go to straight braid, tie on a big jig or a heavy Texas rig, and again, right down the shoreline, as tight as you can get to the cover, whether you're pitching up in 1 or 2 inches of water, or every time there's a bush sticking up or a branch sticking out or a piling, you want to be right against that piece of cover, because the fish will sit right in the heart of it and then just feel for anything to go by them, and they come out and eat it. And don't let the dingy water fool you. Remember, these bass, they feed primarily by feel. It doesn't matter that the water's murky. Now, throwing those bright, bold baits makes it easier for them when they come in to impact that bait to actually eat it. It's easier for them to hone in there right at the end. But they can feel. I mean, you can catch them in chocolate milk water in the dark. They can find the bait. Don't worry about it. But again, those bright or those bold colors really will help you. And then the last way, and I think this is incredibly overlooked, once that water starts to stabilize, if those fish are still up there shallow, and I'm talking dark, heavy stained water, Senko. Now I know that sounds crazy, because why would you throw a Senko? I mean, it's a do nothing, no feel bait, but they'll eat it. It's like those fish, they get up there, especially when it gets calm. They're so aware of the surroundings that even a Senko coming into it, they're on it. And the Senko, see, often when it's flooding, you're flooding grass, you're flooding debris, you're flooding brush, and it's a big mess up there. So a lot of the baits will sink down in that, but the Senko will rise above and sink so slowly over the top of that cover that you actually spend more time up where the fish can easily ambush it. It works. And that's my favorite color to do it with. That bright, bold June bug. Bright colored. That's been my number one. It works for me better than black and blue in that circumstance. Again, I like the 6-inch for doing this, not so much the 5-inch, because I want as much profile as I can get, and that 6-inch is just bigger and it's moving just a little bit more water. They seem to find it a little bit better. And then I'm going to throw that on a 4/0 Superline hook, a heavy duty hook, because you can get away with it. So why not put as many things in your favor as possible? Don't use a light leader when you don't have to. That's just an opportunity for a big one to break you off, especially in that shallow cover. Go heavy gear, heavy line to a heavy hook, I mean, see how big that hook is in that jig? We're not playing. I mean, heavy gear. Hit these fish hard. It's a rare opportunity in the wintertime where they're gonna get up dirt shallow like that and they're gonna get really active and you can really catch them. So take advantage of it. We're coming towards the end of winter. Now, not in the whole country, of course, but for a lot of guys, we're right there where it's gonna start transitioning in a few more weeks towards the beginning of spring. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to set down the finesse and start branching out, trying other things here over the next few weeks. Because before you know it, that light switch will hit and those fish think it's springtime, even when it's still cold outside. But muddy water, it's difficult for a lot of people. It messes up your mind. A lot of guys prefer clear or semi-stained water, but don't be afraid of the mud this year. If those are your conditions, know that those fish are going shallow. Of course, there's an exception to every rule. If the food is not there, they will not go up, even when that water's running. But, I mean, almost everywhere, way over 90% of the time, way over. If that water's running hard and your lake is rising, the bulk of your fish are right there in that top 2 or 3 or 5 feet of the water column, right up against the bank. You've eliminated a ton of water. You know where they are. Go have some fun. I hope that helps you. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon.